MAGA can't seem to stop insulting women. The stakes start now. Well, welcome everyone to The Stakes. I'm Tara SETMAYER. This is the lovely Michelle Kinney. And it's been a week. It's been a week on a lot of fronts, a lot of ups and downs. Many of you who follow me on social media know that I lost my beloved Tiki this week, my almost 18-year-old companion. And so the beginning of this week was really tough for me. And I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who sent me messages and condolence messages and people who have followed Tiki and I through the years, because he's been very public, had his own little Instagram and everything, the Teekster. Thank you to everyone who sent really nice messages to me. It helped. I've never experienced loss like this, so the grieving has been considerable. Michelle, you are a cat lady too, so you understand that bond, and that's one of the things that bonded us when we first started working together was our love of theater and kitties. And so, yeah, it was really hard. And Tiki, I kept this quiet for a while because Tiki was diagnosed with a cancerous tumor on his lung in August. And we really weren't sure how much more time we had with him. And thanks to my mom, who was a former vet tech, and my stepdad, who has a heart of gold. They're a great team when it comes to taking care of animals. We've had many over the years. Thanks to them, they were able to keep Tiki comfortable and around for probably a couple weeks longer than he would have otherwise. And so we got some extra time, and he was a little trooper, my little warrior to the end. He made it through us going to the DNC. I almost didn't go because of it. He made it through our anniversary and my birthday. And finally last Sunday, he made the decision that that was the day that he was going to cross the little rainbow bridge. And so he did. And it's been a lot. So, but I just wanted to start to say thank you to everyone who was supportive of it. And I have a little locket here that my mom got me that I have his little fur in that makes him feel close to me right now as I go through this process. And it's like weirdly comforting. So that's that. On to other things. So thank you guys. On to the election. There's been some good news this week, Michelle. Let's start with the good news.
Okay.
The good news is that Kamala Harris has some momentum, we see.
Yes.
Got a little bump, not as much as we thought, but a little bump coming out of the debate last week that's carried over to this week with new polling. And she's doing really well among women. Donald Trump is not. I wonder why.
It's a mystery.
It's a mystery. I wonder why. But we, even though some of those numbers are good, like even the New York Times numbers have shown that the trend is good. I mean, you know, how we feel about the New York Times right now, but their poll is one of the ones that has been less favorable to her. But even their poll shows that she's got 5 or 6 points ahead of Trump nationally.
I think I saw one of them 6. Yeah.
Right. Which is outside the margin of error. And outside what the pollsters have said, that she needs to be at least +4 nationally to win. Now, we all know national polls don't matter. But
I was just going to say, national polls don't matter unless there's a certain threshold that you cross, which she has done.
Right. So far, that's today. That's this week. Things can change week to week, as we know.
Oh, yes, they can.
As we know, because in the battleground states, it's a little tighter in a lot of these places. And it's interesting. It's a little bit all over the place too. So Pennsylvania is looking good in some polls, but then in other polls, it's tied. So Pennsylvania is like the must-win state. It really is. This is ground zero this time. We always knew it was going to be the blue wall. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. With Kamala in the race, things have changed a little bit. And so it expanded the map where you had the Sun Belt states too, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Nevada. Sorry.
Nevada.
Don't at me, people. Don't at me. But this is really about, and even Politico had a story this week about, I think it's today, either today or yesterday, about how it's going to come down to these 3 states right now. The other states matter in different scenarios. So the battleground states, 7 of them still matter, but the 3 most important are Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia. That if that's a must, those are must wins. Like Pennsylvania's a must win for Kamala. But if she loses Pennsylvania, she has to win North Carolina and Georgia. For Trump, if he wins Pennsylvania, he most likely will win Georgia and North Carolina. Then it's over. So it's like, every week we're really watching the numbers because, as we've said, this is going to be one in the margins, which is why the Seneca Project, especially with women in these places, is so, so, so important.
And I think it's also important to remind people that polls are reflective of a moment in time. They're not predictive of an outcome.
Right.
So all they are is what people are feeling and thinking in one little moment. It's a snapshot. So, while things can trend upward and downward, to your point, this does not mean forever. So we have to still continue to fight, continue to have conversations with our friends, our neighbors, knock on doors, make calls, whatever it is that we can do. We have to continue doing that until November 5th. We have to think and feel and act like we are 10 points behind always.
Always. And you'll hear Kamala's campaign say that, we are approaching this as if we are the underdogs. And that is the way that you have to, because there are no blowout campaigns anymore. So you always have to run like you're the underdog. And so far, I mean, she's doing a great job, but it's, again, it's a lot closer than kind of the vibes are that we feel, right? You got to turn the vibes to votes. I forgot who said that, but somebody said that. And I was like, that's actually pretty good. The vibes got to turn to votes. And early voting is starting. Where I live in Virginia, early voting starts the 20th. It starts tomorrow.
That's crazy.
I could literally go and cast my vote tomorrow. I'm not going to tomorrow. I will early vote though. But I can't. Not tomorrow. But we have to do it on a day where my husband and I can go together so we can make a thing of it. But
Joe and I do the same. We go together.
It's important. It's important for us to do it, together. So, but I was like, oh my gosh, early voting starts tomorrow here, and ballots are going out in other states. In North Carolina, I think Wisconsin is soon. So it's starting.
What are the polls looking like in North Carolina? Because I don't think I actually looked at those.
Yeah, so it's a little like Trump is up in North Carolina by a couple of points.
Okay,
but the Carolina governor's race is such a drag that's what's putting Carolina in play. That's why you saw the Harris campaign go there, and she did 2 events in North Carolina, because there's with the demographic shifts and the growing population in North Carolina, especially in the research triangle down there in the Raleigh-Durham area. Those, you got to get those voters out. They trend a little more Democratic, so it's within the margin of error, just like everything else. It's within the margin of error.
And the guy that they nominated for governor is just on the Republican side is an absolute nutcase.
Yes.
Like, he's crazy.
Yes.
He's the one who's saying that women shouldn't have the right to vote. I mean, he's nuts.
He's nuts. And like
nuts for madness.
Right. And I don't care that I feel like almost he's getting a little bit of a pass because he's Black. And he's a Black Republican, that they're not going after him as much as they would have, because he is saying outrageous things. Then he should not get a pass. I mean, outrageous. Everybody looked at what happened in 2022 with like Mastriano and Blake Masters and these other guys saying these crazy shit. This guy, Mark Robinson in North Carolina, is saying stuff like that. Worse, actually. And so, and you don't see him on the national stage the way we did with some of the other MAGA crazies.
He's a true believer too.
Yeah, he is.
He's not one of those that just goes
No.
He is a true believer of these crazy things.
Yep. And he also hides behind religion and Christianity to justify a lot of what he's saying too. So he's like an actual Christian nationalist with that. And he's let's not forget, the guy's the sitting lieutenant governor. So North Carolina, they elect the lieutenant governor separate from the governor, so they don't run together. The guy's the sitting lieutenant governor. He's actually in office right now, which is just insane to me. Insane. But, so North Carolina, again, in play. But all the focus right now, I think, is going to be on Pennsylvania. And like I said, some of the polling has Harris up. over 50, either at 50% or over 51%. But some other polls have it tied. So if you live in Pennsylvania, especially in those suburban counties, please make sure you are registered to vote, because it was National Voter Registration Day this week as well. Make sure you're registered to vote. Check your registration. Make sure your friends are registered to vote, and you have a plan. You have a plan to vote. Every vote's going to count there in Pennsylvania. And I also think they might pull some shenanigans there too, because Pennsylvania has these weird voting laws where you can't open the absentee votes until like midnight or something, and then it might take a couple days to count all the votes. And we already know that Maga's gearing up. We know that they're gearing up to create chaos. So if it's close. But what's not chaotic, which I meant to mention at the top of the show, but I also wanted to make sure I thanked everyone for their nice well wishes about my Teakster, is that we actually have I want to do this now. We have a new team member at Seneca that we are so thrilled to announce. We put the announcement out today. She joined us this week, and it is former Miss America, Mallory Hagan. She has joined us as our national press secretary. And we are thrilled because, like I said in my announcement with her, about her, she is fierce and fabulous, and she's a huge advocate for women and families. And we are so excited to have her on our team. So you'll be seeing more of Mallory around these parts. She might even come on the show with us soon.
I know. Well, the thing about Mallory is, yes, she was Miss America, and I think people have a lot of preconceived notions about the Miss America program. I think some valid, some not.
Right.
But because if anybody knows my past, I may have dabbled in the Miss America program like many years ago. Like I'm talking like 25 years ago or more, actually.
Yes. But you stayed involved. You stayed involved in it. You judged some things,
I stayed
and
involved.
That's how you met Mallory, right?
Yeah, because I was actually a judge for the Miss New York City and Miss Manhattan pageants, like, I don't know, long time ago, and that's how I ended up meeting her. And to be honest, when I was sitting there on the judges' table, she walked in, and it was like immediate. I was like, "Who is this?"
Yes.
And the fact that she went on to win Miss America was just, I was like, "Of course." Yeah. And I really have been, hoping at some point there would be an opportunity to work with her. And I just, this is the perfect place and the perfect time to bring her into our circle and our team. And, in addition to being Miss America and an advocate for children who have been victims of child abuse, it was like that was her platform as Miss America. She also has run for office in the very red state of Alabama.
God bless her.
As a Democrat, because you know what, and she knows, she knew going into it. She ran for Congress, and she also ran for a state race. I forget if it was state Senate or House.
I think it was state Senate, yeah.
Yeah. Back to back. And it is a very courageous thing to do in those parts of the country. She, decided it was worth it. And she understood, and I think understands, that for Democrats to build some sort of momentum in these parts of the country, you have to start somewhere.
Yes.
And she said, why not me? So I know she's really working with the Democratic Party in Alabama to try to, build some infrastructure. And she's just wonderful. So I'm so happy to have her. And
me too.
Hopefully I'll get to know her soon.
Yes. And, she saw what we were doing here at Seneca and was like, I want to be a part of that. And we were like, well, we want you to be a part of that. So
hell yes.
We're come on over. So we're thrilled to have her. And so if everybody can follow Mallory on all the socials and welcome her to the Seneca Project team. And that's kind of the reason why I wanted to bring her up now, is because we were talking about red states and ruby red states and how courageous it is for Democratic women, especially in this environment with all these assaults on women in these red states, to be outspoken and to stand up for women's rights. And Kamala Harris's campaign this week put out an ad featuring one of those courageous women who we also saw in person speak at the DNC, Hadley Duvall. And she's from Kentucky. So what she went through, she was sexually abused by her stepfather and then impregnated by him at 12 years old. And she has been talk about fierce and courageous. She's been out there, which I can only imagine she relives the trauma when she has to tell the stories all the time, repeatedly, about what happened to her. But she's been out there saying, like, thankfully at the time this happened to me, I was able to terminate the pregnancy and not be forced to carry my rapist's baby here at 12.
Mm-hmm.
But now, because of Dobbs and because of Donald Trump, if it had happened to her now, she would have been forced to carry her rapist child at 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
This is a decision being faced by thousands, unfortunately, of young girls across the country every day. And it's not right. It's not okay. And you don't want to think about those horrible repercussions of the Dobbs decision and the overturning of Roe, but it's real. It's
We
real.
have to talk about
We
it.
have to talk about it. Yeah, I think we have the ad. Let's take a look at it.
Yep.
It's so powerful.
I've never slept a full night in my entire life. I was 5 years old when my stepfather abused me for the first time. I just felt like I was alone on a planet with a monster. I was 12 when he impregnated me. I just remember thinking, I have to get out of my skin. I can't be me right now. Like, this can't be it. I didn't know what to do. I was a child. I didn't know what it meant to be pregnant at all. But I had options. Because Donald Trump overturned Roe v. Wade, girls and women all over the country have lost the right to choose. Even for rape or incest. Donald Trump did this. He took away our freedom.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
I mean,
I don't know that there's words. I think about what I was doing at 12 years old and how I was so much a child at that point in my life, playing the clarinet and going to dance class and you know, playing with my dog in the backyard. For something like that to happen to a child in her own home.
Yeah.
And when
she was 5, it wasn't an isolated incident. She had to deal with this awful trauma for 7 years, and then it culminated with this. I mean, my goodness, what resolve.
And the courage that it takes for these women to speak out. Because I mean, I can only imagine there's a fair amount of shame and just trauma that you're just carrying with you forever. And she has turned this horrible thing that's happened to her into a rallying cry that I think is resonating with so many of us. And when she spoke at the DNC, she told her story about being 12 years old and this happening to her. And she said, imagine being 12 years old, and I'm paraphrasing, being forced to carry the child of your parents. Like, you're a child having to carry the child of your parents. And when I tell you the oxygen left the room,
I remember
in an arena, Terry, we were both sitting there watching this.
Yeah.
There were audible gasps, thousands of them. And this young woman, Hallie Duvall, I have all the respect and admiration for her courage and for her resolve in this moment, and for, you know, the fight that lies ahead, because I don't think she's going anywhere.
No.
And
she's in your face. Like, you have to like, she is the face of what this means. So one of the most devastating consequences of the MAGA agenda for women. She's the epitome of that, the poster child for it, legitimately. I mean, she's a grown woman now, but she, you know, you're going to tell her, you're going to have to look in the eyes of young women like her. It's good luck with that. But there are people out there who still seem to think that, you know, it's not a big deal and it doesn't matter, and it doesn't matter.
Or they think the stories aren't true, or that it's fake, or there's this misconception that people are like, well, like, of course that they would allow that. They're not going to allow a child to go. Yes, they will, and they are.
They will. And
it's happening.
It's happening. And in our debut ad, in the Time for Choosing ad, there is a line that Michelle wrote in there that said that there will be no state to escape to. if these people get into power and they implement the type of agenda they want to implement, taking our freedoms away from us. And that's
Mhm.
the truth. There will be no state to escape to. So her stories, we're hearing the stories, more stories about women losing their lives. This week, ProPublica, shout out to them. They do great work, undercover work,
They're the
exposing.
best of the best.
Yes, they are. They're like the 60 minutes of print investigative
Mhm.
journalism. It probably better, actually.
Yeah.
They uncovered this 2 stories of these women in Georgia who were denied care, having miscarriages. One was 28 years old, mother already of a 6-year-old, having a miscarriage. The doctors refused to do the D&C procedure in which he needed because of the new laws, the trigger laws in Georgia after Dobbs was overturned. And she died. 20 hours of not being cared for in a hospital that could have saved her life. That a routine procedure would have saved her life. But
Easily.
instead they did not, because they were
28 years
worrying
old.
about it.
A young 28-year-old healthy woman. And, you know,
Amber Thurman, right? That's her name? Yeah.
And, you know, I say this all the time, Tara. Who gets to decide how close to death you are? How sick you are? At what point do the doctors step in? Do they feel that they can? Because these doctors are terrified that they're going to go to prison for the rest of their lives if they treat women. So these women are, listen, and I can't imagine the trauma that's being left on these doctors too.
Right. Goes against their Hippocratic oath.
Correct. And, you know, what the infection when, you know, these procedures are not being allowed to be performed, very routine, very normal procedures that happen all the time. The infection starts to take over your body, and her fever began to rise, and then it began to take over her organs.
Yep.
And by that time that her life was in danger, according to whom I do not know, it was too late.
Yeah.
And she died. And it's
should never happen. That should never happen in this country.
Never.
Should never happen. This is America. It shouldn't happen here.
No. And you know, I come to you today from the free state of New York, in New York City, right? Which I think that some of us take for granted, the freedoms and the rights that we have here. You know, I hear Ron DeSantis say the free state of Florida. Bullshit.
Yeah.
I live in a free state, New York.
That's right.
And I had a miscarriage in 2018. And it was horrible. I had no idea what I was about to go through. Because again, there's so much silence around women's healthcare and our experiences around pregnancy. There's so much shame and no one talks about it. And it's a private thing, obviously, and a personal decision to talk about these things. But I hope that more women will, because if I had not had access to the healthcare that I needed during that time, I mean, I was on the phone with my doctor every single day for 3 weeks. I mean, when I tell you, like, you can take a pregnancy test through your miscarriage, and on the other side there's enough hormone in you for it to test positive. Like, these things take a while. And, you know, there are so many women that go through this, many women.
Yep.
It's a very common thing that happens, unfortunately. And it's very traumatizing emotionally, but also physically. And now that women are going through this without the access to healthcare that should be a human right to have access to, is just beyond my comprehension. And the fact that Donald Trump could win in November and we could all be sent back to the Stone Ages, in which women are dying in larger numbers. 1 in 3 women of reproductive age live in a state under a Trump abortion ban right now. Right now.
It's unimaginable.
It is unimaginable. So, you know, I understand there's a lot of people in this country who have, you know, very closely held beliefs about abortion, and, you know, that's your right. But you cannot tell a woman what she can and cannot do with her body. And you certainly cannot withhold life-saving healthcare just because your God, you know, tells you whatever. I don't know. It is just so insane to me. And I personally in 2024 cannot believe we're having this conversation.
I think that a lot of people feel the way you feel, and it's people's personal religious beliefs. For years, that was my foundation for being pro-life, came from a religious belief. And, I've evolved on this because I can still have that personal religious belief, but it's not fair to impose that through legislation on other people who don't, or who may have it's not. So that's where the line is drawn. And that was kind of a wake up moment for me after Roe was overturned, and seeing the impact of it. It's different when it's notional.
Sure.
It was notional for 50 years, right? But when it became real, and then you see the real life impact of it, these stories and others, it forces you to have to take a step back and go, wait a minute. There are real life consequences here. And who am I, because of my personal religious belief, where we don't live in a theocratic country, to impose that on other people through legislation? It was an area I struggled with for a little while. And then, eventually was like, okay, no. Because we saw the extreme. Yeah. The extreme, and we're seeing it. And you say it all the time, Michelle, about the lack of imagination of what could happen. Well, there was a lack of imagination, and it happened. And now it's in our faces. So that's why it's so important.
I was tweeting about this the other day, about the lack of imagination. And I think I tagged you in my tweet.
Yeah, you did.
Someone was talking about cesarean sections, C-sections, which also a lot of women need to save the life of their child and themselves. I have a friend who gave birth last year, and her child, like the baby's shoulder got caught or something. Like he needed to come out now, right?
Yeah. There's all kinds of scenarios where it needs to happen, or women have fibroids and they can't birth through the birthing canal, or there's all kinds of reasons why C-sections are necessary. Go
exactly. Ahead. And also I really need to turn off the reaction thing, because you see that thumbs up just
went up. God.
Good God. I need to turn that off on my iOS. Anyways, so she would have died, her baby would have died had she not been able to have this. And don't think for a second they're not coming for that too. They will find a way to make sure that we are all under the control of the government, telling us what we can do, how we can do it. I mean, I hate to keep bringing it back to The Handmaid's Tale, but at this point,
I know
Margaret Atwood should sue the Republican Party for, intellectual property theft, because
right.
It's certainly looking more like a guidebook at this point, for the things that they're putting women through.
Because what makes this not so out in left field is that they're coming for IVF, and which nobody ever thought, something that 85% of the country agrees on. They're coming for IVF. Why? Because, that's not the traditional way to have a family. That's not the godly way to have a family. Are you kidding? I mean, this is the same thing with C-sections. Oh, well, no, it's not good enough now. So you're pro-life. People are trying to have families, but no, it's not the traditional way, the godly way to have a family. So we're against that. So then what? A C-section? If you're not birthed through the vagina, if it's not like a vaginal birth, then that's not good enough either. It's insane. But I think if you don't think that these people don't believe these things, or that it's too far, we're going to replay the Christian nationalist video about women and how they feel about us. These are people in Trump's orbit that are hanging around, that will be empowered if he wins. This is what they think of women. Don't think we're crazy. This is what they think of us.
The reason why I have grown to despise democracy, everyone is allowed to vote. Right. Everyone. And just for the record, I think the 19th Amendment should be repealed. I think that because, first and foremost, because I'm a Christian, and that is the Christian position. Oh my gosh, you're saying that? Yes, that is the Christian position. By repealing the 19th Amendment, just for the record, it's not just trying to take away a female vote, but it's trying to say, no, there's a family vote. Right. There's a household. And it's like, well, where do women get their voice? Where women get their voice is from their father, from their husband. If they're not married, it's from their father. If they're not married and their father's dead, it's from their brother, it's from their uncle, it's the men in their lives that love them.
I've been accused of being sexist and misogynist, and for whoever's accused me of that, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it. And fuck you, you feminist twats. when you're in your
Amazing.
ego and your desire to gain power by still using your sexuality, you can't get ahead. You can only get ahead by either fucking more powerful men or suing more powerful men or shitting on more powerful men. You can't get more powerful independently. Imagine that. That's why they get desperate, feminists do, because they can't get ahead without either giving head or taking a head off in the court.
A lot of women want to be raped. And when I say raped, I mean like, that sounds bad when I say it like that. But there's like a lot of women that really want a guy to beat the shit out of them. But also they have to pretend, but part of it is they have to pretend like they don't.
When women were granted the right to vote, the nation had already accepted the lie that a nation is nothing more than a collection of individuals. And so the matter was framed this way. Men as individuals can vote, so why cannot individual women do the same? We were so muddled, we thought we were giving the franchise to women when we were in fact taking it away from families.
People are like, that's so archaic. You're a Neanderthal. You're so, primitive and chauvinistic. You won't let women vote. Well, our society doesn't let 5-year-olds vote. We don't let children vote. And it's not just because of competency, because that would be the immediate counters. Well, but their brain isn't fully developed. And so are you saying that a woman is like a child? Yes.
Don't believe us. Believe them.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't stop with just women's reproductive health. It doesn't.
No.
So, that is just a fraction. We could spend hours, Michelle has said this before too, clipping these things because they constantly say disgusting, despicable things like this about women.
Constantly, all day, every single day.
Mm-hmm.
All of this stuff exists on some sort of platform or podcast or video podcast somewhere, if they've been deplatformed from YouTube, on Rumble or wherever else. This kind of stuff is happening all the time. And by the way, there's a lot of women who help them.
Yes. And who is helping this week perpetuate this MAGA attack on women and diminishing Kamala Harris for not having children?
I can't say it.
Oh, I will say it. So Michelle, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who Michelle affectionately calls Sarah Hucklefuck, which I audibly cracked up when she put it in the notes. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who is now the governor of Arkansas, also a Nepo baby because of her father. She was there with Donald Trump doing a town hall where, of course, he was attacking women and making disparaging statements about Kamala Harris. And then she made a comment. Do we have the clip or no of what she actually said?
Oh, yes, we do.
Okay, let's play the clip of Sarah Hucklefuck in her own words.
Let me find it. Where is it?
She is so...
Hold on, give me a second. Where is it?
Oh, no worries. She's tough to take, man.
Oh, here it is.
She was press secretary. I couldn't stand listening to her. She was just the worst. Roll it.
You can walk into a room like this where people cheer when you step onto the stage and you might think for a second that you're kind of special. Then you go home and your kids remind you very quickly you're actually not that big of a deal. My sweet daughter reaches up, pats my shoulder and says, "It's okay, Mommy. One day you can be pretty too." So my kids keep me humble. Unfortunately, Kamala Harris doesn't have anything keeping her humble.
Okay, I'm going to reserve comment on the "you can be pretty too" thing because I'm not going to be mean. But again, the purposeful mispronunciation of Kamala Harris's name, we all know what that's about, making her more ethnic, and they don't like the ethnic.
Super racist.
Right. We know what that's about. It's on purpose. And then the implication again that she's less worthy and that she needs to be humble because she doesn't have children. And then as women of color, the whole idea of the humility and like the audacity of us being, smart, confident, successful, the implications of all of that. There's just so much in that clip that is infuriating. And frankly, Sarah Hucklefuck can go have several seats and fuck all the way off.
That's right. And first of all, I always say that there's a special place in hell for these kinds of women who think that there's only one seat at the table and it's for them. And so they're going to do whatever they can to, pat the egos and carry the water for all of this nonsense, anti-feminist rhetoric, which really just harms women at the end of the day and dehumanizes us. Dehumanizes. I don't have kids. Terry, you don't have kids.
No.
Are we any less of people that don't care about what's going on in the world?
Right. Are we, or is our worth any less? Do we? Oh, but apparently JD Vance thinks so. And he has said it repeatedly. And that's why, and women have heard him. We've heard you, JD Vance. Okay. Yep. We've heard Donald Trump and what he thinks of us. We hear you. And this is why there is a 21, Kamala Harris is up with women 21 points. There is a plus 21 gender gap and wider in some places with women in this election. The largest gender gap since 1996, Clinton and Bob Dole. So this is significant. It is not insignificant. And it's not just Democratic women. It's not. Because Republican women who are unhappy with what's going on, who are repulsed by Donald Trump, who are listening to JD Vance work out his mommy issues that he has, clearly he has a disdain for women. Right. Go to therapy, not to the White House. Right. Don't we have a video of something else that JD Vance said that was? Oh
yeah, he said this. I don't know exactly when it was, but the Kamala Harris campaign tweeted this out a few weeks ago, and I have it right here.
This guy.
And I think our conservative idea is that parents and families should determine what children learn, what values they are brought up with. So many of the leaders of the left, and I hate to be so personal about this, but they're people without kids trying to brainwash the minds of our children. And that really disorients me and it really disturbs me. Randy Weingarten, who's the head of the most powerful teachers union in the country, she doesn't have a single child. If she wants to brainwash and destroy the minds of children, she should have some of her own and leave ours the hell alone.
Again, this was him going after teachers, the teachers unions. Oh, you don't get to have a say if you don't have children. These people are troglodytes. Like I just cannot with their antiquated view of women and our worth based on our fertility.
And let's be real here. This really only they say women and children they only really care about some children. Let's be real about that.
That's right.
It's not all women. It's not all children. It's some children. And those children maybe look a certain way or talk a certain way. Because let me tell you, people like Sarah Huckabee Sanders, governor of Arkansas, last year rolled back child labor laws because, as you know, if you're a teenager and you want to work even if you want to work before the age of 16, you have to get that permit to be able to work, and you're only allowed to work a certain amount of days and things like that. They rolled the law back in that state so that employers don't even need to ask at all. So we have children under the age of 14 working in often very dangerous environments, mostly. And think about what kind of children have to work.
A lot of these are immigrant children, by the way, that are working in these poultry plants and these factories and the farm fields and stuff like that they need. So they're quick to demonize immigrant families, but God forbid they want to protect. They say they're pro-children, but they don't want to protect them either. They're such hypocrites. It's despicable. It's despicable.
Total hypocrites. Total hypocrites.
It's the same thing with what's this ongoing horrible saga in Springfield, Ohio, with the Haitian immigrants there. This is just awful. I understand that there can be challenges when you have a large influx of immigrants from another country that don't speak the language that come, and then sometimes there's a large amount. There can be problems integrating into the community initially, but our whole country was about influx of immigrants coming and establishing themselves and working and creating families and becoming a part of assimilating into the community. That's what America was based on.
Right.
When mass immigration happened. My German ancestors that came over, my great grandparents that came over through Ellis Island, and my grandmother's family who came over from Italy, and your family who came over from Ireland. Hello, this is America. This is what happens. And those Haitian migrants that are in Springfield, Ohio, are here legally. JD Vance said that he's going to still call them illegals, even though he knows damn well that they're here legally. This creates another us versus them and otherizes and dehumanizes these Haitian immigrants, and it's wrong. 50 bomb threats have been called into that community, including schools in that community, because of the bullshit, horrible, vile rhetoric coming out of JD Vance and Donald Trump's mouth and the rest of MAGA that are perpetuating a lie. It's a lie about the pets being eaten and all this shit. It's a freaking lie. And JD Vance admitted with Dana Bash on Sunday on CNN, well, if I have to make up a story to get the point across, then I will. Really? Come on. I mean, you're bad enough, but now you're making it up. And look what it's doing to that poor community. It's just, and the kids there that are being terrorized now.
Yeah.
And Trump is saying he might go there in 2 weeks. We know what happens when he talks about 2 weeks, but he doesn't need to go there.
No.
What are you going there for? Stop it. They're
Vivek Ramaswamy said he was going to go. I'm like, what are you all doing?
I can't
what do you
with
think
him.
you're going to find when you get there? You're going to find a small city of people who are like, what the hell are you doing here? Leave us alone.
Leave us alone. You people created this problem.
Yes.
You guys, it's your fault. Now you're going to come here and demagogue and exploit us for your own political gains to scare people about, immigrants. Stop this. The mayor, the governor, even the governor, Mike DeWine, is a Republican. And he's like, stop it.
Stop. You're putting these people's lives in danger and creating more division that doesn't need to exist at all. And it's just, if
this is their closing message, like this is the final weeks, this is what they're running on. They're banking on this, Michelle. They're banking on this.
And if you have a moment, go Google John Legend's video, straight to camera video he put out when this was happening. He's from Springfield, Ohio.
I didn't know that until he did that.
Yeah. And he talked about his community and how, this is a small city of 55,000 people or something like that. And they all these new manufacturing jobs came into Springfield.
They came back because they lost them. And
Right.
there was a mass exodus of 20,000 people. And then they were able to bring back the Chamber of Commerce and whatever to reinvest in that area.
Right.
So they got all these jobs and they needed people to fill them. And these Haitian immigrants came over there in the TPS program, the Temporary Protected Status program, that this was a great place where they could go and actually work.
Yes, and it's affordable. And quite frankly, there were so many jobs that there weren't enough people in the community to fill them.
Right.
And so this helps the economy. This helps, especially local businesses. And this whole made up thing about the cats. Didn't they the woman who posted this? They found her cat because she had reported it missing.
Yeah.
They found the cat. It was hiding in her basement.
Yeah, the whole thing was a made up. It was like a 5-degree separation of telephone. This one heard from this one that this one said this one of that. It turned out to be a complete fabrication. And the woman who posted it apologized because look at the mess it's created.
But it's no one hears it.
No, it's too late
the lie
now.
Makes its way around the world before the truth can get its pants on.
Right. That's right.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're right. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I am from a small city, much smaller than Springfield.
Me too.
I think last time I checked, it's 20,000 people. A post-industrial, I always say Little Detroit is kind of where I'm from. It's a small, somewhat rural area with a city that used to have all kinds of jobs and beautiful architecture and urban renewal and all these things came in. And now there's this huge influx of unemployment. There's a lot of poverty. It's mostly white people who live there. And there's so much grievance because they're angry about losing their place in the world and not feeling like they can get a leg up, and they need someone to blame for it. And listen, when I go home, I see the Trump flags everywhere. I think The Atlantic wrote an article about my hometown a few years ago, calling it one of the most politically tolerant places in America. And I was like,
you're like, wait, what?
I don't know about that.
Yeah. I
don't know about that.
I mean,
Right.
I come from North Jersey, so it's not rural. It's
Right.
blue collar, suburb of New York City, Paramus, New
Mhm.
Jersey. I talk about it often. But it's, Paramus is only 30,000 people.
Right.
And it's, we had malls and they were the mall
I
capital
love
of the
them all.
Northeast. And yeah, but like, again, humble beginnings. It was celery fields when my great grandparents came over from Germany and settled there.
Right.
It was celery fields. Like my mom can remember as a kid, because we still have our family property. It's been in the family for 100 years.
Mhm.
It's where I grew up. It's where I went to high school. My mom went to high school. My aunt,
Yeah.
they didn't have a high school when my grandfather went to school. He went to neighboring Ridgewood, who is our rival town. Ridgewood is a lovely place, by the way. But like, my mom remembers like the planes coming over to do crop dusting. And when they built the houses in the subdivision where my best friends that I grew up with lived, like this is how it was. We were small towns, and guess what? There were immigrants that came in.
Yeah.
In my high school, in my junior high school, it was Indian Americans, Pakistani Americans, they're Italians, like it was a melting pot there of that kind of immigration. A
Right.
lot of Koreans, like
Mhm.
there weren't any Black people though, but I was the only person of color. There's a couple here and there, but it was other
Right.
melting pot. But that's what this is about. And the fact that they're demonizing these people, like I said, do problems come when you have a large influx of a different culture? Sure. But nothing like what Trump and
No way.
MAGA are doing and what they're scaring people into believing, and now putting these people's poor lives at risk and their kids. It's not right. Because last time I checked, it wasn't a bunch of Haitians that were beating up police officers and breaking windows in the Capitol and defecating and shitting all over the Capitol marble floors.
Literally.
Okay, trying to overthrow our government. It wasn't them. Just saying.
There are, as I'm sure you have, Tara, have had conversations with immigrants in this country. I worked in restaurants for years in New York. For any of you who don't know, I came to New York to be an actor. I was a backup singer for many years. I had left theater school and moved here with $200 in my checking account. I worked in restaurants for, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 years, the first 7 or 8 years I lived here. And I worked with a lot of immigrants. And I had a lot of conversations with them as best I could, with Spanglish going in either direction. But listen, these people who are here, they come here for opportunity. They work jobs that Americans will not do for a fraction of the pay. And, some of these people have been naturalized or have become United States citizens while they're here. And these people are just as American as the rest of us and have so much pride living here. It is, I don't want to hear that this American dream is dead shit.
Yeah.
Just because it's not alive for you anymore doesn't mean it's alive for somebody else.
In their own minds.
Is still here. Right, in their own minds.
In their
own
minds.
The American dream still exists for many people, especially for the people who come here to escape all kinds of things. And, especially for the ones who come here legally, just trying to make their way and support their families. They just want to live and work and, peacefully pass away one day like the rest of us.
Yes, because despite Donald Trump's dystopian bitching and complaining about America, it's still the greatest country in the world. Yeah. And, are there problems with illegal immigration in our immigration system? Absolutely.
Yeah,
Can things be improved? Absolutely. It's multifaceted, it's complicated, and the fact that they're conflating all these issues into one lump thing is not right. Again, they're demagoguing it for their own political expediency, and people's actual lives are at stake here. And we need to, think about that, cut through it. Who do you think is really trying to solve the problem? And who do you think is just using it and exploiting it? And last time I checked, Donald Trump has 2 immigrant wives, but they were all right, I guess. Right.
They're okay. And I won't get into it here. But if somebody wants to go find Melania Trump's most recent social media post about her past, have fun.
I already tweeted about this. I have made it known how I feel about her. And she's another one that needs to shut the hell up, go have several seats, and fuck all the way off, because she could be complaining about America and bitching about being first lady and the
she's
fucking
like the
Christmas
OG
trees.
birther. She's like the OG birther, right along with her stupid husband. And
how ungrateful, how ungrateful, because she could be milking goats in Slovenia, and instead she's not. And why? Because of our immigration system that she
Birkin
exploited.
bags.
Right.
Yeah. Like, stop. And, and, the last thing on the immigration issue, Democrats put together a bipartisan bill, one of the most transformative, policy.
As someone who worked on immigration for 7 years when I was on Capitol Hill, I wish that we would have had a bill like this back then, bipartisan, to pass. It would have been lovely. It was really,
it was sponsored by the Border Patrol. It would have put way more officers on the job. There was all kinds of stuff in the bill. And you know what? Donald Trump called up his minions in Congress and said, kill the bill because I want this to be the issue that, damages the Democrats and Joe Biden. And if we get a win on this, it hurts me. And so they did it.
That's right.
So bullshit.
So they don't really give a shit.
That.
That's right. They don't give a shit. And it's all about politics. So they don't really want to fix the problem. They could have. And they want to exploit that. And it's working because the polls show that Democrats are weak on that issue. And the economy, again, perception. The Fed just cut interest rates by 0.5. They thought it was only going to be a quarter. They did a half a percentage point, right? Inflation has slowed down at the slowest rate in I forgot how many long, but yet people still think that the economy was wonderful under Donald Trump and that he would be better at it. No, he won't. No, he won't. Stop.
Right.
His perception is reality.
His tax policy. You know whose tax policy we're living under right now? Donald Trump's.
Yes.
That's it. Right?
Yeah.
So this is where I this perception, Simon Rosenberg was tweeting about this, I think this morning or something too. And I was reading it and I was like, so angry because it pisses me off. I know a lot of I hear the finance bros and complaining in the bars and stuff like that. And it's almost like they were rooting for a recession. They were rooting for it.
Because it helps them.
Yes.
They buy cheap. So when the economy recovers, they make millions of dollars. Right. And believe me, Donald Trump is all about that. He doesn't give a shit. He's the king of debt. And he's got some kind of crappy crypto company now that's a con that he's pushing for his own family. And he's, there's a sucker born every minute.
Right.
And unfortunately, a lot of them vote.
And then, that's another weird job I've had in the 20 years I've lived here. I worked at a hedge fund for 2 years, guys. I worked at a hedge fund. I know these people, and it's just, they're a very conservative crowd for different reasons that the rally goers, support him. To hear people kind of actively root against middle class and working class people in this country is just about some of the darkest things I can imagine and think about. So it really pisses me off.
It's backwards, but bringing it all full circle, it seems as though that there are a lot of Americans who are now engaged since it's after Labor Day. They're paying attention. The trends look good, but still work needs to be done. It's still entirely too close. It's too close. Yes. It's too close. So we need to keep doing the work, keep supporting organizations like ours and others that are getting the word out, talking to these because for us, we are speaking to women. And there are, other organizations speak to different constituencies. The campaigns have to fight on multiple fronts. Yes. We are singularly focused on women and women's issues and how women can make the difference and how that impacts our democracy. So that's what makes us unique.
Exactly. And just on, not to spend too much time on this, but I did want to just bring up really quick on how the Republicans blocked the IVF protection bill in Congress this week on Tuesday.
For the second time.
For the second time. And let me just find, here it is here. They blocked the bill. And this is, they said, Republicans, against Donald Trump. Here's where Donald Trump, he's saying one thing, his people are doing another because none of it means anything.
No.
Is what the play is.
Yep.
This is the play.
The fetal personhood shit.
The fetal personhood. Yep. So here's the thing. So the Republicans tried to, pass their own bill. It was Ted Cruz and Katie Britt. If you don't remember Katie Britt, she my stupid thumbs up again. Katie Britt, who gave the State of the Union response in her kitchen, and she talked like this, and
It was so weird.
So
so weird and so cringe.
creepy.
Cringe.
And so they had their own. It was just a show bill. It just was like there was no meaningful protection for IVF. And again, it's silent on the fetal personhood thing. And so I just wanted to show our viewers and our followers who come here is that, you know, earlier this year, conservatives pushed to declare fetuses as people, as far-reaching consequences, right?
This is what happened in Alabama. This is why they were like, oh, the embryos, if you don't use them and if you discard them, then you're like, it's murder and it's the whole thing.
Right. Yeah. And again, I'm not even going to get into that, like why that's insane. But so it says here, fetal personhood, a longtime cornerstone of the anti-abortion movement, is the idea that a fetus, embryo, or fertilized egg has the same legal rights as a person who has been born. Now, what's going to happen with this is it doesn't really matter who wins. If Kamala Harris wins, I think that they'll double, triple down on this and they're going to go full throttle.
Yep. Because this was the same path that they used to overturn Roe.
That's
just
right.
so that people understand. It's the same playbook.
Right. And Dobbs really opened the floodgates on all of this.
Yep.
So what's going to happen is they're probably going to start to propose things that to the rest of us probably sound on the surface very nice. And like, oh, that's a great idea. Yep. They're going to offer things like, life insurance on a pregnancy or like things like that, right? Because that's sometimes the argument. If a fetus is a person, why can't I get a life insurance policy? They might start to do things like that are going to sound nice because it's going to get them closer to that finish line. And so they're very good messengers. They're very, it's like pro-life. It's like not a thing. You know what I mean? It's like pro-life what? But it's a good phrase. It's a good term for these people. The partial birth abortion thing, again, that was like a fake thing that a Christian group came up with, and the Republican Party ran with it,
branded it, and it's still going on, going strong.
Still say it.
Culture wars.
Right. So here are the thing. I mean, those are the things. Obviously, if Donald Trump wins, God forbid, we're in for bigger problems. But if and when
Can I just
Kamala
say
Harris
something
wins,
about that real fast? I was talking to a friend of mine who works with folks in the national security space. I'll just say that. And that there is concern amongst those folks who study international things and the US and all of that they're preparing for, if Donald Trump wins, for the United States to become a failed state. That's how serious this is if he were to win. Imagine. Yeah.
That is
terrifying, and it should be.
That is,
but it's a real possibility.
There was a story, I believe, in the New York Times earlier this year about, governors and representatives around the country preparing themselves. Governor Inslee is one of them who was stockpiling the abortion pill in his state in case Donald Trump wins. I mean, there's people really from the ground. Yeah, there's people and places from, preparing organizations from the ground up, preparing for the worst.
Election workers, there's a story out about how election workers and election officials across the country are being put through crash courses on how to protect themselves in case of an event, a violent event. Some of them are getting panic buttons in case something happens to them, active shooter drills for election workers. Okay, this is Donald Trump's America, people. This is what Donald Trump wants our country to turn into, it's so much bigger. I mean, it's just so much bigger than, my milk is more expensive. I mean, I get that's a problem, but this is bigger than that, folks. People need to get their heads out of their asses and understand what is really truly at stake here from so many different angles. If this guy wins, if Maga gets their way, it's a lot.
It's terrifying.
Yes, it is.
It's truly terrifying.
So I think we're done scaring folks enough now. We're done scaring you, but fear works, except that what we're telling you is true. We're not demagoguing. Yeah, it's real. We're not demagoguing the issue. These are real concerns that you should think about as we head into now voting season, because that's what it is. We're right around the corner from that. The IVF issue, as Michelle just went through, why that is just even bigger than just the family issue. I think we should play our IVF ad, and then we're gonna show something good. We're gonna end the show on a positive thing because it's been heavy. But let's show our girl dad ad, Hope.
Yes. 1 second. 1 second. I don't know where it is.
We have hope that hope will emerge.
Oh, here it is. Found it. Sorry, there's so many pieces of video over here. I'm like, did I label it correctly? Here it is. Here it is.
It wasn't easy getting here. The loss, the heartbreak. My wife is tough, resilient. She said, we'll just keep trying. I didn't know much about IVF until we needed it. There were moments when all hope felt lost. But we finally got our miracle. From the moment I held her, I vowed to protect her. If it were up to Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, our little girl wouldn't even exist. They don't care about the joys, the sacrifices. They only care about their control over our lives and her future. Who the hell are they to tell us how or when we become moms and dads? We know what's best for our families. It's time to stand together, not with any party, but as parents. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz get that. That's why this fall, I'm voting for her. I'm voting for hope.
Such a good one. So thank you to everyone. If you like our ads, if you like our content, please continue to support us so that we can put them out on the air in those battleground states. That's what we're trying to do here. So we thank you for that. Thank you for your support. And we have a story about Billie Jean King, which I think is a good one for us to end on. And Michelle, go for it.
So Billie Jean King is to become the first solo female athlete to receive a congressional gold medal. Now, if you guys know, I am a big tennis fan. My husband and I, we go to the US Open every year. We love it. And, Billie Jean King is a trailblazer, not only in the sport, in her sport, but all sports. She won 39 Grand Slam titles. I mean,
true icon.
12 in singles, 16 in women's doubles, and 11 in mixed doubles. And she has been an advocate for gender equality and has been a pioneer for equality and justice overall. And at the age of 29, if you remember, there's a 55-year-old male tennis player who thought women were inferior and challenged her to play him in a televised tennis match, and she beat him in 3 sets.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a movie or a documentary about that?
There is Battle of the Sexes. Yeah.
Yes.
So it is going to happen, but always a nice reminder that 87 Republicans voted against it.
Because of course they did.
Of course.
But
Billie Jean King is a pioneer, a legend, a leader for women and LGBTQ people in this country. She is wonderful, and I can't think of anyone more deserving to have that first female, solo female congressional medal, as of course, one of the first pioneers in the sport. So
we like that. And big congrats to her. Well deserved, absolutely well deserved. And I think that that's in line, as you thought. You were like, this goes really well with our We Must Win ad. So we will leave you with our We Must Win ad, because why? Because we must win. It's November, not just for us, but for her, for them. You'll see.
That's right.
You haven't seen this ad. I think you'll love it. On that note, we will see you guys next week.
Take care.
From the 6 a.m. practice to the away game pickup, from her first goal to the state finals, from the big wins to the big lessons, we take care of all the little things. We do these little things so our daughters can achieve big things. We do all of this for their future. And this fall, that future is on the line. We have come so far, but we have one big thing left to do for our daughters. Their rights are on the ballot, and we won't go back. Not now, not ever. This fall, we will go for the gold, and we must win for them.